This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans. Wrestling fans have their favorite jobbers, but the story of Barry Horowitz is a loser who learned how to win. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at learning how to win, the Barry Horowitz story. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Professional wrestling is an entertainment medium all its own, and for many young viewers, becoming a wrestler is like a dream come true. Such was the case with Barry Horowitz, who grew up watching wrestling and trained in amateur wrestling to get a head start. From there, he trained with Boris Malenko, one of the all-time greats from the Territory era. Malenko, best known for portraying the villainous, the Great Malenko, delivered the goods as far as Horowitz was concerned. Looking back on his training, Horowitz once noted, "I credit my training as the best from both ends. Both the people who trained me and the training itself primed me for being in the ring at a high level." As we'll see, the training was everything Barry boasted of. Barry began competing in the WWF in 1981 under the name Barry Hart. Hart worked singles and tag team matches at house shows and the WWF syndicated shows All-Star Wrestling and Championship Wrestling, even landing the occasional WWF Tag Team Championship opportunities alongside partners such as a young Kurt Hennig and Mac Rivera. Needless to say, Hart didn't win the titles. Nonetheless, he won an occasional match against fellow jobbers and also wrestled to a draw against fellow enhancement talents. What was Bret the Hitman Hart doing in Jim Crockett Promotions in the early 1980s? Absolutely nothing. But if you look at match records, you might confuse Bret Hart with Calgary's Bret Hart. Jim Crockett Promotions was one of the many territories where Horowitz honed his skills as he competed there as Bret Hart. In a 2023 interview, Barry revealed how he got his new name. At the time, heel manager Gary Hart was working in the promotion, and the promoter didn't want to confuse fans with a babyface Barry Hart. According to Horowitz, he was unaware of Bret Hart, but he loved the name and used it during his time in the Mid-Atlantic region in 1983 and 1984. Like many enhancement talents, Hart was given the occasional win in singles and tag matches. Unsurprisingly, he counted the lights for the company's stars, including handicap matches where he helped put over Nikita Koloff as a monster. Jim Crockett Promotions featured many of wrestling's biggest names, and Hart took advantage of being around so many talented wrestlers, not only learning from them in the ring, but also learning from them as he traveled from one event to another. Along the way, Hart forged friendships, one that led to his next big opportunity. Wanting to work closer to home in Florida, Horowitz contacted his friend Jay Youngblood, who he worked with in Jim Crockett Promotions and who was now wrestling in Florida. Youngblood helped out, and soon, Horowitz was brought into Florida, this time as Jack Hart. Horowitz was thrilled by the name because he was always a huge fan of Jack Briscoe. For some fans, it's difficult to take a wrestler seriously after they've lost match after match. While fans can appreciate a competitor's in-ring ability, watching them count the lights every week makes it unlikely they'll have any future. However, Championship Wrestling from Florida took this idea and turned it on its head. Wrestler Dutch Mantell was booking Florida, and he decided to spin a storyline about Hart going from born loser to champion. After endless losses, the numbers were displayed weekly, keeping fans updated on his losing streak. Heel manager Percival Pringle III, the future pallbearer, offered Jack his services. This and a loaded glove turned things around as Hart captured the NWA Florida Championship, enraging fans who couldn't believe Pringle was managing a perennial loser to big things. Barry eventually turned babyface, famously telling Pringle he might not be able to beat any wrestlers, but he knew that he could beat Pringle. Hart's exploits gained attention outside Florida, as the After magazines covered his unlikely rise from chump to champ. Like many wrestlers, Jack Hart worked in Memphis's Continental Wrestling Association. There, he competed in singles matches, defeating jobbers, but usually losing to stars such as Bill Dundee, Big Bubba, aka future WWF superstar Typhoon, and Billy Joe Travis. However, Hart's tag team with Chick Donovan led to championship gold when they defeated Rocky Johnson and Soul Train Jones, aka future WWF superstar Virgil, for the AWA Southern Tag Team Championship. Hart and Donovan were less successful when they challenged the Midnight Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, for the AWA World Tag Team Championship. Barry eventually returned to the WWF. But as always, he did what he could to stand out from other enhancement talents. Now working as Barry Horowitz, he wore a ring jacket with a hand embroidered on the shoulder so he could give himself a pat on the back before his matches. Talk about a confidence booster. Although Horowitz's self-motivation rarely paid off, it usually gave fans a laugh, and Horowitz's skill at making opponents look good impressed them. Barry Horowitz had his moments in the WWF. He wrestled Rick Martel on an August 15, 1987 episode of WWF Superstars, where the Islanders attacked Martel after the match. This was only the beginning for Barry. One of wrestling's biggest paradoxes is how talented performers ended up as enhancement talent, with the twin goals of making their opponents look good while working a match that didn't injure them. For some jobbers, it was difficult to wrap their heads around the idea that they were being paid to lose, and that was their biggest function in the ring. This wasn't a problem for Horowitz. "I always knew I was capable. A jobber, if you want to use that word, is a guy who's only in it for a buck. He goes to the gym every now and then, doesn't have the ring gear, doesn't know the business that well. You just get your butt pounded on TV, and that's it. But that wasn't me. I knew this business. I knew what my position was, and I went out there and gave all I had, and to see it pay off was incredible." For Horowitz, hard work paid off, something reflected by the push he received in the mid-90s. As we've seen in various videos profiling the essential work of enhancement talent, wise promoters know what exceptional enhancement talents bring to the ring, which makes them a commodity of sorts. Barry Horowitz's career demonstrates this, as he always had work, whether it was in WCW, the WWF, the Global Wrestling Federation, or Herb Abrams' Universal Wrestling Federation. Horowitz wrestled multiple tours in All Japan Pro Wrestling, which is arguably the biggest example of how skilled he was at his job. Given the Japanese promoter's reputation for wanting skilled technical workers, with occasional exceptions, All Japan's repeated invitations for him to work there were an honor and an endorsement of his talent. Barry received a spot on Shawn Michaels' Survivor Series team in 1993, working under the mask as the Red Knight. This was a big night for him, even though he recalls being hurt in the match. "I was flattered to be picked. Holy cow, I was just ecstatic. But that night I got a semi-concussion too. Bret Hart kicked me out of the ring, and it caught me just the right place, I guess." Although Horowitz's skills at making others look good were admired, was his success in the championship from Florida a fluke? In 1995, Horowitz got an unlikely push, beginning with a shocking win over Bodydonna Skip on the July 9, 1995 edition of Wrestling Challenge. Skip showboated during the match as manager Sonny watched on. To Skip, it was clear that this was another easy match, and he decided to show off his fitness by doing push-ups in the ring. This proved to be a bad idea, as Horowitz rolled him up for the 1-2-3. Skip was outraged and told Horowitz he wouldn't last 10 minutes in the ring with him. Barry proved him wrong on the August 5th episode of Superstars, Enraging Skip. The two met at SummerSlam, where Barry pinned Skip, showing his first win was no fluke. For the next few months, Barry enjoyed wins on TV and at house shows. This didn't mean he was unbeatable, but for the first time in a long time, he was winning his fair share of matches. Fans enjoyed Barry's winning ways, and the WWF gave him a moderate push, also playing off his Jewish heritage by having him wear trunks with the Star of David on them and using the song Hava Nagila as his entrance music. The WWF booked a storyline where Horowitz took recently turned babyface Hakushi under his wing, helping the Japanese star get used to American culture. Or at least Horowitz tried. Barry Horowitz remained in a supporting role, teaming with Hakushi, Marty Jannetty, and Bob Holly in 1995's Survivor Series, and competing in 1996's Royal Rumble. Alas, Barry's winning ways did not last, and he returned to counting the lights before leaving the WWF in 1997. In 1998, Horowitz jumped to WCW, becoming a regular on WCW Saturday Night, until WCW scrapped the show. In 2000, Barry left WCW and began working the indie circuit until retiring in 2003. Horowitz worked 2 matches in 2013, which seemed like his last roundup. However, Barry Horowitz wasn't done with the grappling game. Despite his retirement, Horowitz remained a familiar face to fans, and he was always good for a nostalgic nod. MJF used Horowitz in a segment promoting his match against Wardlow, with Barry billed as a legendary Jewish wrestler. In 2023, Barry Horowitz returned to the ring. Impact Wrestling star Johnny Swinger was involved in a storyline where he'd earned the world title match if he could win 50 matches. Swinger's sidekick found him an opponent with an even worse record than him, Barry Horowitz. However, the 63-year-old surprised Swinger, taking the fight to him. Horowitz even won the pinfall after being distracted by Swinger's rival, the Demon. Now 1-0 in Impact, Horowitz decided to make a bid of his own for the World Championship and asked the company's head of security, Santino Marella, if he could get the same deal as Swinger. Marella agreed, informing Barry that he was already off to a good start, and the next week he could face Rhino, a much more formidable foe. Horowitz gave it some thought and decided to go out on top. Barry Horowitz's legacy is about more than being one of wrestling's greatest jobbers. Horowitz was a skilled competitor who could work any role, whether it was a nameless loser, plucky underdog, or conniving heel. As far as Bret the Hitman Hart is concerned, personally, I think Barry Horowitz should be in the WWE Hall of Fame, said Bret Hart at a virtual signing for High Spots. Barry Horowitz was a really good wrestler, never hurt anybody, ever, was always a pro in there every night. That's a guy that should be in the Hall of Fame. During an episode of his podcast, Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru, wrestling promoter, commentator, and manager Jim Cornette discussed how Horowitz's skills were a blessing and a curse. He got pigeonholed in that role of always putting guys over in WWF TV because he was so good. He was so effing good. But unfortunately, it kind of typecast him. Do you agree with Cornette? Was Barry too good at what he did to be portrayed as a winner? What do you think of Barry Horowitz's career? How would you rate him compared to other outstanding enhancement talent? Would you like to see a detailed profile on one of wrestling's other jobbers? Share your thoughts in the comments section and let us know if there are any other videos you'd like wrestling's greatest moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about wrestling's greatest moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.